Thank you very much. This smells great.
I know.
I need coffee.
I know.
Nice. Thank you, Heidi.
It's really thoughtful. It has a little mug in it.
Doesn't have the mug in it. Yay.
Is this from the little? They have it. Is this from the local? Yeah.
Around the corner?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Oh, there's 2 mugs.
2 mugs? Oh my god.
Western Springs mug.
Oh.
That's really cute.
Oh,
Great.
Me, because it was given to her.
Oh, it smells so good.
Hi, that's really cute. It smells awesome.
yeah, pretty cool.
Oh, I'm so excited. I need some coffee actually.
Right now?
Right now.
You got it somewhere?
Right now, it's still in the front seat.
Okay. Oh, you eventually. Yeah.
Good.
This wasn't 2 years
It's
ago.
gonna smell so good up here tonight.
Oh, it's gonna keep us awake.
Oh shit, yeah, right there. What's going on, guys?
Hey, what's up?
They had the police car at SJC the other day too. They're like, who's getting arrested? I go, I don't know. You tell me. You guys were school here.
From Heidi.
Regulation toolkit. That's a pretty too.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Just want to do it.
Yeah, we are stretched
Oh.
today
Yeah.
with all the kids' activities. 2 basketballs, a hockey, new
We just
car.
did it, and we were in London, and it was awesome.
Yeah, my wife's
Instead of
car.
2 hotel rooms, we had like an apartment with a kitchen, and
I love it.
Yeah.
We mostly do.
You get that.
Well, we
you
use
get
your
the quote unquote invoice. So this is what it's going to take to fix you. No.
No.
Absolutely not. I am not putting any more money into the car at this point. So quick shopping.
It's
Go,
so
okay. I thought we were going to downsize.
You're not making her walk. That's
Right. Yeah, right. Just help it, babe. It's always in California. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. Yeah.
in there,
They do. She can take the M plate.
I hope it's
So wherever
plugging
she
in their
needs to go,
earphones and someone else.
But she'll also, sometimes it's like the end of her time, and she's like, I'm not driving all the way to Markham, and then driving all the way
but we're
to
distracted by the coffee smell.
then that's how I can just go, then she can come straight home and all that good stuff. So, yeah, I thought we were going to go smaller than that, but of the Yukon. So
Oh, geez, a big rig.
I'm going to have 2 boats in my driving.
No.
Yeah, but we're switching them, right? Like now it's different. Those are my
Okay,
two
well, then I
levels.
can say it.
Yeah, Hartland Bryce over there.
Okay.
But we usually now it's usually only taking like 1 or 2 of them or whatever, and now we're usually all
All at once. Yeah.
right. So it's like, ooh, we can get something smaller.
And then they sold out.
Ready?
It's
ready?
really cute. Well done. Well done.
Ready? All right. Very good. Good evening. Welcome to the January 13th, 2025 regular meeting of the Village of Western Springs Village Board of Trustees. To honor our nation's heroes and especially to honor the individuals who serve and protect our community, please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk Timmick, may we have the roll call, please?
Yes, President Rudolph. Trustee Avakian.
Here.
Trustee Chen.
Here.
Trustee Fink. Here. Trustee Lewis.
Here.
Trustee Naraki.
Here.
Trustee Terrell.
Here.
All present?
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on in our agenda, our next item is that of citizen comments. Do we have anyone here who would like to address the board? All right, hearing none. Moving on to the next item, the approval of the meeting minutes, but these are included later in the business, in the new business, or in the old business?
They are under old business, I believe, as well.
Okay, so we'll approve those later then.
Yeah, or you could do it now if you want.
Okay. We have it here.
I think our software just put it in.
Just
two
duplicate
sites,
it?
so-
Just, yeah, here at number 5, I would just say, does anybody have any questions? If not, we'll vote on it under
Okay.
new business when we get to item 12C.
Okay, very good. Thanks, everybody, just with our new software here. You'll note that we are referencing the December 2nd and December 16th minutes. Did anybody have any questions or anything with those? Okay, then as Mike suggested, we'll get to the motion for approval then later in the agenda under new business. All right, with that, we will move into our committee reports, and we'll start, please, with general government. Trustee Terrell?
Thank you, Madam President. I have 3 short matters. They are all housekeeping issues. The first item we discussed in our committee was an extension of the contract services with MGM Impact Solutions, which was formerly known as GovTemps USA. That was for the contracting of Human Services Project Managers Stefana Przybylski. We've been using Ms. Przybylski since 2022 for assistance with recruitment, employee training, and special projects. It's budgeted for 2025. She's been very, very helpful from everyone that I've spoken to. The cost to us is between $10,000 and $15,000. We're in favor of this new contract with MGT Impact, and is money well spent for Ms. Przybylski. If there are no questions about this, my second item was the IRMA alternate delegate resolution. It involves the appointment of Deputy Village Clerk Jill Izzo as IRMA delegate. IRMA, if you might remember, stands for Intergovernmental Risk Management Agency. That's our insurance risk pool. IRMA requires municipalities to appoint a delegate and also an alternate to represent the member municipal committees at IRMA. Jill Izzo will be our alternate. Casey Bernacki will remain as the delegate. Jill has a background in legal matters, and we were very welcoming to have Jill be our alternate. There's no further questions on that. The final point of discussion at our committee the other day was approval of the 2025 legislative program as presented by the DuPage Mayors and Managers Conference. Now, the Village of Western Springs, if you might remember, is an associate member of the DuPage Mayors and Managers Conference. We are at the same time, we have full membership in the West Central Municipal Conference. These councils, both of them prepare legislative priorities to guide lobbyists and communicate with legislators as to the issues that are most pressing in our community. The DuPage Mayors and Managers Conference has identified 4 issues. The first being municipal revenues and unfunded mandates, that is trying to claw back a greater share of the local government distributive fund, which has been cut back for several years. They're trying to get more percentage of that money to come to our village. The second legislative item would be working toward more sustainable public pensions, preventing an expansion of Tier 2 pension benefits from reaching fiscally irresponsible levels. The third item of legislative interest through this association would be curtailing unreasonable FOIA requests by requiring convictions before the public release of body camera footage that protects the privacy of any individual that the police may be arrested. Arrests aren't convictions. That's something that was very important to the DuPage mayors and managers to bring forth to the legislative bodies, as well as an expansion of the Open Meeting Act to allow electronic attendance for committees and advisory boards that don't have final action in a matter and refer the final action to another decision-making body. The thought would be there'd be more participation if we allow these lower committees, so to speak, electronic attendance. The final issue for the legislative agenda will be supporting greater municipal presence in public transportation to align our issues with the regional decision-making with the needs of local communities. So we are in support of that through the DuPage mayors and managers. Again, we also have a similar agenda that will be, I imagine, coming up with our own West Central Municipal Conference, but that's we're behind that agenda for the DuPage mayors and managers. If there's no further questions, or any questions on that, that would be, close my report.
All right, very good. And I think we'll act on that resolution then with the.
Oh, that's tonight? Okay.
That'll be tonight then. Okay, thank you very much. All right, moving on to Finance Committee report.
No report tonight.
All right, thank you very much, Trustee Chen. All right, the Planning and Zoning Committee report. Trustee Naraki.
Thank you, President Rudolph. Planning and Zoning's been quiet for a little while, but we're going to go through six topics tonight. The first topic being PC-2024-04, a comprehensive plan amendment to the long-range land use map and an amendment to the village zoning map at 917 Long Court. The property owner of 917 Long Court is requesting to rezone the rear portion of the property from R4 multiple family residential to a single family residential. The property owner intends to develop the entire property for a single family home if the rezoning is granted. The committee reviewed the application and recommended advancement to the board. Senior Planner Kelsey Fowell will provide a more detailed update.
Thank you. 917 Long Court is located along the cul-de-sac of Long Court and Ridgewood and is currently the only undeveloped parcel along the cul-de-sac. It is comprised of two parcels, one of which being zoned a single-family residence district and the other, which is the subject property, is zoned R4 multiple family district. Collectively, they make up the 917 Long Court property. The property owner, who unfortunately was not able to attend tonight, their household was impacted by the flu, so they graciously stayed home. The applicant is before you requesting that the subject property be rezoned from R4 multiple family district to a single family district to align with the parcel immediately to its north. The reason for this request is that the applicant intends to construct a single family home on the property, which is currently not allowed under the property's mixed zoning. Single family homes aren't permitted within the R4 multiple family district. So the applicant is looking for that rezoning to have a harmonious zoning between the two parcels. Some background information on the property. In 2005, the previous owner did re-subdivide the property when exchanging the land with its neighboring property to the west, with the intention to develop the property as a single-family residence. The re-subdivision was approved and the plat recorded, but ultimately the previous owner did not decide to construct a home on the property. I'll take any questions if anyone has any.
Good.
So if there are no questions, we could place this on the January 27th agenda for action.
Okay, very good.
Everybody okay with
We'll
that?
do that.
Okay, sounds good. The next item on my agenda is 4300 Howard Avenue, First United Methodist Church, Hinsdale First United Methodist Church, plat of abrogation for a public sidewalk easement and dissolve a conditional use permit. The First United Methodist Church of Western Springs and the First United Methodist Church of Hinsdale have merged. As a result, the churches are selling the Western Springs property at 4300 Howard Avenue. The property has two encumbrances that would need to be removed for the sale to occur. The committee reviewed the application and recommended advancement to the board. Representatives from the church are present as well as the buyer of the property. Director Vallone, can you provide more detail?
Thank you, Trustee Naraki. So as Trustee Naraki mentioned, the property that the First United Methodist Church of Western Springs sits on is currently for sale and under a pending contract with a buyer. The church, back in 2014, entered into an agreement with the Village of Western Springs to place roughly just under 3 feet of public sidewalk on their property to allow the village to improve the right-of-way on 43rd with head-in parking, which was utilized during the week by Field Park School, and then of course on the weekends or on nights when the church had events for church parking. That agreement has been in place since 2014. That agreement did acknowledge that if the church were ever to redevelop, the village would relook at the agreement and of course the sidewalk. As they are looking to redevelop this piece of property with single-family homes, which would match the zoning that is currently on the property as well, they are looking to have that head-in parking removed and the sidewalk then replaced in the right-of-way in a more traditional configuration, which would be curb, roughly 10 to 13 feet of grass and trees, and then of course the public sidewalk on public property. Additionally, as mentioned, there is a second encumbrance on the property, which is a conditional use permit, and that was for Early Childhood Development Center. LADSI, or the LaGrange Area School District, had engaged with the church to operate an early childhood development center there. They have since ceased that operation, and as such, we just need to dissolve the conditional use permit because it's no longer the use that's on the property. So the applicant is here tonight. Zed Francis is representing the Hinsdale Church. Matt Klein is here as their legal representation, and then Peter Tortello is the current contract purchaser of the property. I do believe Zed Francis was going to give a little bit of history on the property.
Well, Heather about covered all of it.
There's a microphone there.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. It's on, it's on.
Okay. Heather had covered really most of what I was going to mention, but just a little brief background.
I'm sorry, I don't think the
about-
microphone's on. Just look it up.
Maybe you shut it off. It was on before. Let me just. Yeah, it's on.
Okay, let's try that. Are we good? All right. Heather really covered it, but I want to provide just 30 seconds of history on the church, as many of you may know. The First United Methodist Church of Western Springs has been in the community for 100 years. It moved to its 4300 Howard Street location in the 1950s. Unfortunately, it suffered a decline in membership and it had lost its financial viability. So under the kind of the rules of the United Methodist Church, we held discussions with them, and both churches unanimously approved to merge Western Springs into Hinsdale United Methodist Church, and is approved by the church hierarchy. We have a bishop of the Northern Illinois Conference, and so that was all done unanimously by each church. So we don't really have another use for the building. It has some structural and updating issues, and so we really looked with the real estate advisor what would be the highest and best use. As you heard from Heather and see in your packet, it's already zoned single family with 3 lots, which is exactly what our buyer is proposing. Frankly, from the church perspective, we felt that was very much in sync with the long history of the church in the community, and so we didn't really want to look for anything for a higher density development or other types of uses. We wanted to keep the zoning as it really was. So Pete Tortorello had negotiations with him and signed a contract, obviously contingent upon the approvals. And I think really giving up our conditional use, obviously with LADSI, we're not using that and the building's not going to be there. I think it is important for maybe Pete to just share a little bit, and I know Heather's got some photos or a diagram, just so you get a visual, or you may have it in your packet, just why it's important, these changes on the right-of-way. And so maybe without further ado, if you have any questions, I can answer them. In the meantime, maybe turn to Pete, and if there's something you'd like further explanation or history from me, please feel free.
Thank you so much.
Is everybody kind of oriented to where this is? Close to Music Makers.
Good evening. My name is Peter Tortorello. I'm with Fairfield Properties. Zed, thank you for the introduction, and Heather, thanks for all your help on this. Over there is a diagram of the lot. It's restoring the property to 3 single-family lots, all 80 by 132, and along 43rd Street, which we had mentioned, is just we're trying to sell conventional lots, so the restoration and the right-of-way is important. So our plan is to buy the property, demolish the building, restore the right-of-way, and build 3 single-family homes. That's it. Thank you.
Well, this is not necessarily for you, sorry. But it was zoned single family, but there was a church and a community center on it?
That's correct. That's actually very common for most of the institutional buildings in the village. It has single-family zoning, and the church was operating on it. As you may remember from just about a year ago, when the high school came through, they also are on a single-family zone piece of property as well with a conditional use. So it is very common here to actually have underlying zoning something different. The village does not actually have an institutional zoning classification.
Institutional meaning like a church?
Church, school, village property, government property, typically what we mean by institutional zoning.
Not commercial.
Right, not commercial. Okay, interesting. And actually, can we go back to the item before? That was also zoned multi-family or multi, and it's being When was it zoned that and now it's going back to single family?
Sure. Do we want to finish discussion
yeah,
of the
sure.
church and then we can
Sure.
go back? Or
Sure.
Attorney Jerusik, how would you like to?
Let's finish.
Okay.
Yep. Go ahead.
Any other questions then about, or comments
Yeah.
about 4300 Howard? So now we can
Okay,
go.
go ahead, Nicole. Go ahead, now you can go
On
back
the,
to-
on the item previous, in Ridgewood.
So, really quick, if there are no comments related to it, Attorney Jerusik and I will continue to work with the applicants to finalize the documents that were included in the packet, and we can advance that to the January 27th meeting for action. Excellent. So going back to the last item, I'm going to go ahead and direct your attention to the screen. So you'll see on the screen, and I'll let Kelsey take this over in a moment, but essentially the property from our last item, A, is a piece of property that has two different zoning classifications on it. The front of it was originally subdivided as part of the Ridgewood subdivision. The rear of it was purchased from actually the property owner that's located on Wolf. It's a very long lot that went all the way from back to this Ridgewood area to Wolf. Part of that property was sold to the former owner, and again in 2005 he petitioned to have the property combined under one re-subdivision. But at the time, it wasn't identified that the back piece of property had multi-family zoning or R4 zoning, which does not allow for single family to be developed on it. So what it would mean is that the front parcel would be used for development, but the back parcel could not be used for anything other than essentially open space. So by rezoning the back parcel to A, so that that entire shape would be A, single family zoning, they would be able to develop it as a single property for a single family home.
Okay. All right, so, and the part that's facing Wolf, that's not, sorry for my confusion, is that?
It actually is zoned single family as well. So senior planner Faywell actually was able to pull a zoning map from 1977 that showed that even at that point this property was zoned R4 multifamily, and we were not able to locate an earlier zoning map to verify the time it was annexed why.
So the orange part is what's on Wolf Road, and then the striped part is what we're changing, and the green triangle is what already exists?
Green triangles would already exist. The parcel that's striped is showing the back parcel that we are looking to rezone for multifamily. And actually, if you look, you can see here, if you can see my mouse, this is the parcel that goes to Wolf Road. So back in early 2000s, this property owner who fronts on Wolf sold this back portion to 917 Latin Court.
Very strange. Why
What's the orange square below the stripes?
That is actually Ridgewood Oaks, and we did verify that the piece of the subject parcel, the orange one that we're looking at with the crosshatch, was never a part of that original application for that subdivision. So we really can't pinpoint why this is zoned R4, but we can determine that it has been zoned R4 since about 1977 or earlier.
There wouldn't be any objection. I think the neighbors would want something more simpler than a multifamily residential district.
As included in your packet, there was one person who attended the public hearing. It was another resident on the cul-de-sac. He came and spoke in favor of the rezoning.
Thank you. Interesting. Very strange. Okay.
Odd land
I right
stuff
in the
going on in
middle
Western
of
Springs,
some
right?
kind of- Yeah.
Cleanup.
Okay.
Okay. Moving on to our downtown Western Springs market assessment update. The village has begun the process to update a market assessment for the downtown area. The village has an existing assessment which was completed in 2007. The assessment provides data on Western Springs, including which other communities the village is competing with for customers and businesses. Director Vallone and the village's consultant are here to provide a brief presentation to provide a status update on the plan and provide some preliminary findings and next steps.
Thank you, Trustee Naraki. I would like to introduce our consultant tonight. We have Michael Blue, who's here with us from Tesca Associates, and then we also have Andrew Dunham. As you may remember, in October, we accepted their proposal to conduct the update to this assessment. Our current assessment was completed in 2007, so it's a little bit older. And so we're looking to update the data in it to be able to help us make more informed decisions about our downtown. So I will let Michael introduce himself a little bit more in detail, and then he will also be giving the presentation tonight.
Hey, are we good? Well, thank you, Madam Village President, trustees, staff members. It's good to see you again. We're here to share with you a little bit about the preliminary findings of the market assessment that was done, that we had a chance to talk with you about a little bit last year. It's been a relatively short process. We started in October by doing a number of stakeholder interviews, doing a community survey, analyze existing conditions. A market study is a combination of two things: a chunk of data and a chunk of qualitative information. The art and science, if you will, is putting them together for some recommendations about the community. So that was all towards the beginning, or towards the end of last year. End of last year, beginning of this year has been spent putting all that together in a draft report. We have a draft report, and we want to share with you the presentation of it tonight. Based on your questions, comments, and suggestions, we'll go ahead and finalize that and bring it back to you. Let's talk briefly just a little bit about, again, what is in a market assessment, why you do it, and what you can hope to get out of it. It's about understanding current markets and market trends. I'm going to hold, or you all?
We're good.
Okay. It's about combining that with the socioeconomic data that's relevant to a community. It's about understanding the current businesses that are in town and the business environment, understanding the advantages and disadvantages of being part of a business or having a business here in downtown Western Springs. And finally, the awareness of your competitive alignment. Which sounds kind of harsh, but the idea of who is around you. What are the other choices that you and other residents of the community have to shop, and then to look to that for some findings and recommendations. The findings and recommendations are not absolutes. Here, do this, and I'll get to them on the last slide, but I'm going to start with the caveats. They're things to be considered. Right? This is not a study that is a planning study or that is a visioning study, but these are some things from a market analysis, economic development standpoint to be thought of in context with what you're doing with the downtown. Market studies think in terms of geographies or market areas or study areas. So let's take a look at how those kind of relate here briefly. Our study area is the downtown on the far left here. It extends a little further than the businesses in the downtown. We trued it up a little bit too with the TIF districts that are in downtown, just so it would be consistent. The competitive alignment looks at some of the adjacent communities. It considers LaGrange and Hinsdale and Clarendon Hills. These are studies that were part of the previous assessment that Director Vallone mentioned. Also, what we heard from the stakeholder interviews in terms of where else do people shop, so that's why that's included. And then the overall market area is generally thought of in terms of a drive time. How far would you drive to get milk? How far would you drive to buy new appliances and so on? All this is different than it was not too long ago because of Amazon, but those are the differences that we look at. The other important thing of a market study is how far are people likely to drive to get to downtown Western Springs to do some of these things. And that's why you see on the far right side of this map these large blobby areas with populations that don't quite true up to what we know to be the populations of Western Springs and some of the other communities. There are a number of data services that we use that draw these areas and look at demographic and business information to serve as a tool for doing the analysis. So that's why all these maps are a little bit different, don't necessarily true up, and aren't just information on Hinsdale, LaGrange, Western Springs, and Clarendon Hills, because people don't stop shopping based on boundaries. They may have preferences, but they don't necessarily stop. In terms of the general overall findings, and we'll certainly take questions at the end, but in the interest of time, I'll run through these relatively quickly, and I'll even put on my glasses so I can see what I'm talking about. The general findings that the downtown is well-served locationally. Some places are not. Downtown Western Springs certainly is because of the proximity to 294 and the train station. It is a narrow, linear downtown. Let me just say now, a lot of these things will not be big surprises to you. What we want to share, though, are the things that we find are significant to the findings. But this long, narrow characteristic of the downtown can be a little bit of a challenge. Restaurant spending in the downtown jumped by almost 20% over the last year, and this is based on generalized sales tax data that the village maintains. So this is kind of our first indication as to the strength and the power of the restaurant market in the downtown. Median income is high, and daytime population also has some growth too. So there are people working here in town, which is kind of comparable to Hinsdale and Clarendon Hills. Looking specifically at the retail aspect of the market, we look at consumer behavior and what folks do and what they shop. And this is where our second poke at restaurants and dining comes in. So one of the indexes that the data provides, and this is Esri, a national data service, and they look at surveying and demographic data, is that the village has a meals index, a number of which I'm sure you're all very familiar with, of 229. What this tells us is that the national average of how often people go out for dining is 100. So Western Springs residents, as well as those of the surrounding communities, are more likely than average to go out to dine. Again, probably not a surprise, but something that from the standpoint of the market assessment really jumps out and really becomes significant. And again, another thing that's pointing to the significance of dining markets. One of the things we learned from the survey was this idea of customers making quick trips. There's not a ton of joint trips in the downtown, which is not surprising given its size and its scale and how long it is. So it's not a place where you stop, park the car, and do a bunch of things, but it's a quick trip, one-stop kind of thing, which is in keeping with that one stop being dining. We heard over and over and over again about the loyalty of the customers to the community. We heard about it from the businesses, we heard about it from you and the EDC when we met, and we heard about it from the survey. Usually when you hear something like that, you go, yeah, okay, that's sort of fine. But when you hear it over and over and over again, it becomes really significant. And the connection to the businesses that are in town and the businesses that have been here for decades, not just years, decades, is really part of a competitive advantage of the community. And that's something that, again, market studies are not just all about the data, but it's something that we take very seriously and that has significance here. Challenges. Parking is on the top of the list. The next town I work in that tells me parking is not a problem will be the first, right? Parking is thought of in either a real or perceived issue. It doesn't matter. It's all about, will people drive to the downtown because they know they can find a place to park? And so, not surprising, but when we talk to businesses, when we get the survey information, there's a question or a concern about parking. Gee, we really wish we could find more parking. Not a surprise, and we'll talk a little bit about that after. The other challenge is space constraints, for two reasons. One, the downtown buildings are older, and so they are of a different era and a different format. So the space is a little bit constrained. There's not much of it. The fact that downtown is long and narrow means there's not a lot of space for redevelopment or creating new space. Consequently, vacancy rates are low. Rents are relatively high for the area, both of which, by the way, are very good signs from a market perspective. It makes it hard to get into the downtown. It's kind of the blessing and curse kind of thing, which is great. It means there's a lot of action. It means there's a lot of demand, but it means that turnover is difficult. And then again, this key strength, this idea about the loyalty of the customer. We just don't hear it as loudly or steadily as we heard it here, and so it's certainly something we need to pay attention to. In terms of office space, there is a fair amount of office space. The red and the green here on this chart speak to the amount of office space that's in the downtown. These are a number of businesses, so there's a lot of them. They don't necessarily take up as much space as some of the other uses do, but there's a lot of office space. It's what's known as Class C office space, which just means that it's smaller and older, which again is not a surprise, but speaks in terms of who's moving into it and who can use it and how it gets used. It also has an impact on business locations. People who are looking for a little nicer office space, maybe looking to be on the first floor so they have a little better access. But for the most part, the important finding here is that there's a fair amount of office space that's in the town. As I sort of hinted before, there's a relatively low vacancy rate. Again, these are good things. It's just hard to get new businesses in town. We know from the stakeholder interviews we do and our discussions with staff, there are people looking to come into town. These strengths, the location, the loyalty of the customers, the relative, the economic condition of the community, of a relatively well-off community and surrounding communities, makes it a very desirable area, and there are people looking to get in here, and that all speaks well. In terms of next steps, and again, this will all be detailed a little bit in the final report, both the findings and then some more on these ideas for consideration. These are not specific things to run out and do tomorrow. These are things to think about how they fit into your overall economic development work that the village does on an ongoing basis. The data speaks to attracting these kinds of businesses. And the reason it does that is because, again, the ESRI and the market systems that we use, they talk about how much is spent and how much is available to buy, and it looks at projected growth, and it points to these kinds of businesses as being growth opportunities. Look at the first two on the list, right? Restaurant and microbrewery. These are things that are happening more and more. Apparel stores, groceries. Entertainment is another one that we talk to a lot of people about and heard about as an opportunity for the community. There are a couple of entertainment things that go on in town. An idea for more was certainly worth thinking about. The idea of children's activity and children's play center, and I would include like the music school in that sort of category, things for kids to do, things where there are families. Drove around on the way here because I got here a little bit early. The parking problem out in front of the music school was great because people are dropping kids off. Those are all terrific things to have, and those are things that there's potential for based on the data. What do those mean from a development standpoint? Should there be interest in more development? Well, mixed use, right? Something that brings potentially a small number of residential dwellings to the area or more dwellings to the area, and something that can support additional parking is certainly something that is worth considering. And finally, and again, these are not specific directions the way they might be in a formal downtown plan that had a lot of public engagement and working with you and commissioners, but what does the market assessment tell us are things that the village should think about a little bit further in terms of its economic development planning? We talked with folks who were members of and the leadership of WSBA, and they talked about the things that they're working on doing as they continue to move forward. There's certainly a great resource to be coordinated with in terms of the village. These iconic businesses that are in downtown, lots of downtowns have these iconic businesses. Our observation is that Western Springs has a relatively large number of them, and that they are appreciated and they are shopped at and they are integral to the fabric of the downtown, and so they merit further consideration. Continuing to host events that support the business activities is also included on there. Zoning and retail development, this kind of study always creates the need or the value of looking at a zoning ordinance to confirm does the zoning ordinance get us what we want in terms of the development, both in terms of uses and where it's located. One of the things that you may know is that from the other three communities that were part of the competitive alignment, LaGrange, Hinsdale, and Clarendon Hills, Western Springs is the one that allows office use on the first floor. Something that not every town does. It's an individual community choice. It's what's best for you. But noting that it's different in the competitive communities is something to consider based on what we've got here. Continuing to upgrade the downtown, and this is something that the village is doing through use of the TIF or that's in place or an SSA is something to think about. Redeveloping underutilized sites is always something that's on the list. The idea is not to, when I started doing this a long time ago, the consultants would come to the towns, and I worked for the towns, and they would show you all these big, beautiful developments that redevelop the entire downtown. That's not what this means. The idea is, to the extent there are sites where owners are interested in selling and they're in an appropriate location, that it be something that could provide additional new development, additional space for the downtown, so it's something to think about. And then last but not least, the items on here are looking at continuing to do the things that the village does. It helps owners keep up their buildings in these second floor spaces, and also to continue to look at issues about parking. And not always about making more parking, but about signage that talks about where the parking is located, how to get there, when it's available, that sort of thing. So I apologize for the rapid fire presentation, but that's the quick version of where we're at. Andrew and I are glad to answer any questions that you may have, but our plan is to take what we've got and anything that you care to ask us to look at a little bit further and turn that into a final report for you. So thank you very much for the chance to work with you on this.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation.
It sounds like we need more restaurants or a breakfast place, but we don't have any vacancies to put them in. I mean, we don't even have any vacancies, do we? 1, 2 at best?
That's pretty much the catch-22 that's inherent in the study. It invites two questions. One, are there areas to stretch the downtown from a zoning standpoint? Not many, if any, right? The other is to look at that question that I mentioned before about, well, what is it with the ground floor zoning, right? If we freed up ground floor zoning from offices as offices moved out, changing zoning does not boot anybody, let's be clear. But if the first floor zoning were to change and more spaces were left available, is that a way to create more space for restaurants? So there are ways to do it without creating dramatic changes. But you've put your finger on one of the key questions.
So the other towns don't allow office space?
That's
on
correct.
there? Okay.
Most communities have got some area either in the core of their downtown where they don't allow office on the first floor, where it's set aside for retail. What you'll see typically is as you get further towards the edge, kind of here, as you go further out, there's the doctor's office and there's the dentist with the eye doctor next to it, and that's what you'll typically see.
Okay. Clustering restaurants and retail then, right? So it's easier for people to get to.
Exactly.
Any other questions?
So if there are no other questions, Michael and Andrew are working on providing a draft report that we would then put in your next packet for the January 27th meeting. Again, we review that at your meeting, and then at a subsequent meeting, we could look at adoption if that is the direction the board is looking to go.
So thank you all very much for the chance to work with you. Thank you very much to staff, to Heather and Kelsey for all their help in collecting data and reviewing what we've done. And I'm looking forward to bringing the revised report, or the updated report next week, or 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item on my agenda is pending land use application PC-2024-02, a comprehensive plan amendment to the long-range land use map, conditional use for a planned development, variations, Lawn Avenue right-of-way vacation and subdivision, 5600 Wolf Road, McNaughton Development LLC. Hopefully, all village board members have heard there is a large land use application to convert the medical office building at 5600 Wolf Road into townhomes. Staff provided an update on the application status and the review of the Plan Commission to the committee. Director Vallone, can you provide the update that was provided to the committee last week to the board?
Absolutely. I'm going to show on the screen a number of items. If there are anyone who need to move to see the screen, or if anyone does not have an iPad, please let me know. All right, there we go. As Trustee Naraki mentioned, there's a relatively large land use application that's coming through the process. The applicant submitted an application to amend our comprehensive land use map, our zoning map, for conditional use and then also for a planned development. So they're seeking a series of approvals to redevelop the site for 29 townhomes. So what I'm going to show tonight is just essentially the history of where the application has come in our process to date. At this time, the applicant originally came to the village with a application that was considered complete in late spring, early summer. The original proposal, as you can see on the screen, was presented to the Planning Commission in August. And then on the other side of the screen, you can see the proposal that ended at Planning Commission in November. So the applicant presented the original plan in August. A considerable number of public comment was provided. At that time, some of the items that were of concern to the public were the access onto Park Place, stormwater management concerns, and then additionally density. The applicant over 2 meetings revised their plan to the proposal that you see on the side of the screen that says the November Plan Commission to resolve some of the items that they heard both from the public and also from the Plan Commission. So the Planning Commission heard it at 3 different meetings, ultimately recommended approval of the application as presented at the November meeting with conditions. So I'm going to talk through a little bit about the current site design that the Planning Commission reviewed. So on your screen you'll see a dashed black arrow that shows the current proposed access. The access is proposed from Wolf Road along a private road that would then connect to the existing Heritage Court, which is the street to the townhomes just to the north of the property. Those townhomes are called Heritage Springs. So they are proposing to continue the existing private street, same width as well as the street that exists, from the north side to the south side. That access point is controlled by a swing gate that would prevent cut-through traffic and then also only have access to the residents of Heritage Springs and the proposed development via a clicker system, but would also be improved with an Opticon sensor, Opticon system for emergency management vehicles. So many of you have probably been at a street light when an ambulance or other emergency vehicle has come through. You generally see that the lights are changing based on the direction of travel for the emergency vehicles. It would be a very similar system on the gate. The applicant is also proposing some parking areas within the subdivision. All of the townhomes are proposed with 2-car garages and driveways. They additionally proposed some additional guest parking in the areas you see circled on the screen as well. I will come back to the parking area that is in the general middle of the site later in the presentation. The applicant is also proposing a mix of 3-unit buildings, which you can see outlined in the red dash, and 4-unit buildings. As I mentioned, one of the concerns from the original Plan Commission meeting was density. Although the applicant has not reduced the number of units, they have reduced the bulk of the buildings, which have increased green space on the property, and also generally tried to break up large buildings. So previously, in August, they had proposed a number of 2, 3, 5, and 6-unit buildings. So these are smaller buildings that are spaced differently on the property and have allowed for a greater setback between the proposed buildings and the existing buildings of the subdivision to the north, Heritage Springs. So if you can see my mouse, this is the north end of the property. The distance between the existing subdivision, townhomes, and the proposed has increased significantly since the original plan. As I mentioned, the applicant is proposing buildings that have 2-car attached garages. They also have driveways that service them. They have 2 proposed outdoor areas. They have a balcony that you can see on the screen. They also propose a patio on the rear of the building. Generally, the applicant is proposing materials that are considered higher quality through fiber cement board. Some of you may know it as hardwood board or LP siding, fiber cement siding. They're proposing a full depth brick veneer. They're also proposing architectural details that would make these low maintenance for those who end up occupying them. So for example, that's engineered trim, that's powder coated railings, things that would essentially lower the maintenance needed to upkeep these buildings. So the applicant, as I mentioned before, is seeking a number of things from us. One of them is a plan development, and they are seeking some relief from our zoning code. So our zoning code, as you can see in the table on the screen, requires any planned development to have a 5-acre site. That is not specific to the single-family zoning or multifamily zoning or commercial. Anyone requesting a planned development, regardless of the zone property, is required a 5-acre site. They are looking for a reduction in that to 2.76. We have granted this to other developments previously, both Foxford and the 17 West Ogden townhomes that recently developed. They're also looking for a series of deviations from our yard requirements, so that's how far the building is set back from the front, the rear, and the sides. How the site is developed as a multi-building townhome area is driving some of the reduction from our code. So as we don't have traditional single-family lots, we have multiple buildings on a larger piece. Some of the reduction you're looking is actually between buildings and not necessarily to the outside of the proposed subdivision. One example is between some of the buildings and the private road, there's a smaller setback than on the outside of the area. So what you're seeing on the screen is the most egregious relief they're looking for. Some of the setbacks do meet the requirements. Additionally, from Park Place, the existing office building that sits there sits about 20 feet at the closest to Park Place. They're proposing a 25-foot setback as an example. And then the last one that they are generally looking for is building height. So the village measures height in 2 different ways. The first is a general height, which is typically from the midpoint of the gable or the hip roof. So it would not be the tippy top or the ridge of the roof. It would actually be from the middle point of the hip or gable roof. Another way that we measure it is also maximum height, which would be from the ridge. So the R4 zoning has a maximum of 35 feet. They're looking for 36 feet for one of their buildings, but this is from grade. So just to kind of reiterate, they're looking for a bit of an adjustment to our height requirement, as you can see on the screen. However, it is from grade. So what you see on the screen is their proposed grading plan that Plan Commission reviewed. What we're looking at here is Wolf Road is to the right side of the screen. Park Place is to the bottom part of the screen. And then you're seeing the units that are just proposed right there at Wolf Road. The proposed grade at the foundation of the buildings is actually about 3 feet lower than the existing average height of the road. So what that means is, although they're looking for a differentiation in height, the site is actually lower than a road. And so it's also lower than the residences that are further south of it. So as you are standing on the road, the development itself is actually lower than the road. So it's depressing some of that height down just by the grading. So again, right at the units that are at Wolf Road, that's about 3 feet lower than the street. And then up at the homes that are further south of it, directly adjacent to it on Park Place, it's roughly about 5 to 6 feet. So there's some additional relief they're looking for from our code that I'm going to let village engineer Jeff Koza run through, related to the street design and some stormwater management.
Thank you. As you can see on the display, there are several items that are the developers requesting an exception for related to the street itself. Generally speaking, the site is somewhat tight, and in order to obtain the design, they had to somewhat reduce some of the roadway requirements. The pavement width, 27 foot to 23 foot, that actually matches what was built 20, 30 years ago to the north of Heritage Springs. So when that roadway makes a connection, it'll match, it won't work out of place. The horizontal curvature of the roadway, that's essentially the big first right turn as you come in off of Wolf Road. That radius will be less than a typical residential street. And the vertical curves as well, due to the terrain and the site and having to match existing conditions. Those will be a little bit shorter than what code requires, but ultimately, staff believes the requests are reasonable and shouldn't impact the development negatively. So, the one complicating factor is the stormwater issues on the site. The site itself receives quite a bit of off-site drainage flow. There's approximately 180 acres of drainage area that heads towards the site, and the site has to manage that water as what's called a bypass flow, essentially pass it along where it's trying to go without negatively impacting the watershed. So just because of the vast amount of water that heads towards the site, during certain storm events, there will be instances where the new street connection at the north end of the development where it matches into the existing roadway. There will be some instances during heavy rain events where that does get underwater for a short period of time. Unfortunately, there's no way to avoid that because the development to the north was built at a certain elevation that they have to match to. And during certain rain events, that development does see some water on the street. Luckily, it does not flood units, but the water does sit in the street for a short period of time. So in order to maintain that roadway connection and have a continuous road with the gate, they have to bring the road back down. So there'll be a small area to the north of the development that would violate the code, which talks about not keeping the stormwater on the street during flood events. The site has been designed so that flooding or stormwater storage for the brief period that's on the road is not in front of any of the new units, so at least those folks will have access to the street and be able to head towards Wolf Road. It's also been designed so that the development does not negatively impact the existing conditions to the north. So that combined with the expanded detention basin, the development from a stormwater perspective should be a net positive. But to be clear, it's in my memo, and I've said this for a while now, it's not going to solve our issues in Ridgewood with flooding. There's just too much stormwater for this site to handle. But the engineering has been thoroughly vetted, and we feel like the design is responsible, and at least it does make an incremental improvement by providing some extra detention capacity. But per the code, there is an exception there because of that pre-existing condition where it has to come down and meet existing grade.
Heather, Jeff, could you put up on the map the original, not the original site plan, but the updated site plan? And can you just highlight where the additional detention basins are being installed, and then the enhanced detention basin?
Absolutely. Thank you for that. So there's an existing detention basin located on the west edge of the development. That property is actually Village of Western Springs property, and it was developed as a detention basin when that subdivision to the north, Heritage Springs, was built in the late 90s, early 2000s. And that was used as detention for that development, but it remained village property. So as part of this development, the developer is looking to acquire that parcel as a part of the development proposal, and to help try and store additional stormwater. That detention basin is actually being deepened a couple feet, and the storage will be able to hold approximately double of what it currently does from a volume perspective. So that is located right over there. And the prior thing I was talking to about the little area that has water on the street, that'd be at the north end of the development there. You can see there's been, in the most recent proposal, there's been a shift in the unit southward to provide that little open green space so that we can get, so that water does not encroach upon the new development. So that's why that looks like that.
And isn't there one more extension of the Lawn Avenue detention basin between the two townhomes?
Yeah, so it's not depicted on this drawing, but they're actually from the intersection at Wolf Road there will be an underground box culvert, which is essentially a big pipe, from Wolf Road westward towards the detention basin. And then when that goes underneath the new roadway, that little square area that says detention, that was added after the initial submittal to further try and expand, to maximize the amount of storage that we can have on site. Again, it doesn't solve the issue, but the effort was made to try and provide as much storage as possible.
So while still on this slide, the other item of relief from our zoning code, the applicant, or excuse me, relief from their code that the applicant was looking for was being not required to install a public sidewalk on Park Place. The Planning Commission did not recommend that deviation from code, and the applicant has acknowledged that and is proceeding forward with the Planning Commission's recommendations. I'm going to get back to where we were in the slide if you would bear with me a moment. The Planning Commission reviewed the application and the variations of it over 3 meetings. You can see on the screen, they also reviewed the application related to the standards in the village code for the various types of applications. The applicant is also seeking the vacation of our Lawn Avenue right-of-way. As Director Koza mentioned, the Lawn Avenue area is technically still under village ownership, even though it is approved with a detention facility that is servicing the Heritage Springs area. So they would be looking for that to be vacated as part of the application. So we did receive quite a bit of public input, both at the meeting and written correspondence from various residents and interested parties. That is included in the Planning Commission's recommendation as well as part of the record. So the Planning and Zoning Committee was provided this update last week as the applicant submitted the revised application to respond to the Planning Commission conditions on December 17th. So we were not able to, based on that submittal date, make the meeting, so we provided an update to the committee to provide just some background on it. It is scheduled for this Thursday to be reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Committee. That packet has been published and is on the village's website. The village website also contains the updated plans on the village's development proposals page for anyone who is interested. So from the 16th meeting, that would progress to the village board meeting for village board workshop, January 27th, and then depending on the ability of the applicant to execute a number of items, would likely move to the February 10th meeting for formal consideration. So this was intended to provide background information, just really be informative. The Planning and Zoning Committee has not formally considered it. They've been provided the same update to orient them to what they will be seeing this week. I can take any questions that we have at this time related to what the Planning Commission saw, but otherwise, generally you will see it on the January 27th meeting for your discussion and review.
And if I can just quickly, if there's no questions, just a quick comment on the right-of-way vacation. Under our policy, we typically have a public hearing by the board when you consider right-of-way vacation. Part of the public hearing notice and part of the development application had the Plan Commission conduct that public hearing. And then part of their relief also requested that they being the applicant, the developer, be allowed to acquire all of the property and not have any adjacent neighbors acquire that property. So the petition is going forward, with that assumption that public hearing's been taken care of. They're the applicant for not only the development, but the purchaser or the acquirer of the Lawn Avenue property. And then in terms of compensation, we do have in our right-of-way policy the opportunity to either pay cash at a certain square footage dollar amount, or for these types of residential PUD, plan unit developments, we have the ability, the board has the ability to accept like-kind or in-kind contributions. And what is being proposed by the developer is He has a schedule of construction costs for the detention basins, plural, all the detention basin work out there, that exceeds, it's about $505,000. If you look at the record, he's committed to putting that amount of money into the ground, into the stormwater drainage improvements in lieu of paying the village for the right-of-way basins. And there is a draft redevelopment agreement that, and a zoning ordinance that's within your packet that identifies that as a condition that, provided that the developer spends at least the value of the right-of-way, which is pegged at just over $400,000, as long as he spends at least $400,000 in drainage basin improvements, the village won't look for a payment. It's anticipated by their own engineering estimate that they're going to spend over $500,000 of drainage improvements. The documents do say that if the developer does spend less than the $400,000 price for the right-of-way, that they would pay the village the differential. So we don't anticipate that there would be any money exchanging hands on that part of the transaction. We anticipate that the developer will build at least a $500,000+ stormwater drainage improvement, and that will handle the consideration for the right-of-way. The other thing that's important about the Lawn Avenue right-of-way vacation is all of the zoning that Director Vallone talked about, all of the variations and the exceptions from zoning are all premised upon that Lawn Avenue vacated area being contributed to the overall development site. So, in the event the board did not want to vacate Lawn Avenue, that would really, cause this to go back through a process where the developer would have to submit a new site plan and go through another public hearing. So everything's premised on that parcel, which is off the tax rolls, being vacated, put it on the tax rolls, because then it will be taxable property, a benefit to the village, and then have it contributed as stormwater management for this development, and have that stormwater basin, enhanced stormwater basin, be managed and maintained and repaired, replaced over time by this development and not by the village. So just a couple comments about that unique component of this particular development.
Heather, I had a question. Can you go back to the first page showing the side-by-side with the next one, the one before that, the two side-by-side? Are these both the same scale? So I'm wondering what actually they're not, right? The one on the left is from a higher area, like in the sky.
Right. So the one that was on the August Plan Commission one was one exhibit that was generated by the applicant. The November one was generated by the applicant, but then staff actually put in that little box that you see to kind of to do the site data. So it is they are the same size. It's just the visual it's slightly more zoomed in the November one.
Right. Those they're not taking any of those buildings on the north end of the property. You see what I'm saying? If you look at the north end, you've got buildings there, and then here they're
correct.
They've been shifted down.
Right. They've been significantly shifted south.
Okay.
Yes.
The other question I had is we talked a lot about minimum variance, or the variances all being changed, but it's all within the property. The side yards and front yards. It's all contained. We don't have this encroaching upon any other private property, except for maybe these ones down on the southwest corner. It looks like a couple of homes there.
So along Park Place, 30 feet would be required by code. They're proposing 25 feet. Along the homes that start to curve on the elbow there, you're also seeing, instead of 30 feet, you're seeing about 20 to 25 feet. The really small setbacks you saw in my table are more generated from the interior of the property.
Self-contained.
Right. So actually, for example, that very small 7-foot setback that you saw for the interior is actually generated here in the middle of the site with the detention pond. It's just located only about 7 feet from that wall or that railing area. So a lot of the smaller setbacks you're seeing are actually being generated from inside between the buildings. rather than necessarily on the outskirts of the property. They are looking for minor deviation from the zoning code. As I mentioned, like Park Place, for example, they're proposing 25 feet, it's supposed to be 30. But generally, the smallest setbacks that they're really looking for are more interior to the site.
How about those two homes on Park Place? Were they part of the group that had public comment?
They were.
And were they in favor of this or not?
The ones you see the elbow, is that what
Yeah.
you mean? The two
Yeah,
you
the
can
two,
see.
you have two homes in here and we're giving a variance for, that would be next to those two homes. Were those two people, did they have? what
You're
did
talking
they
about the
have to
two
say?
on the angle?
Right, on the elbow. You've got two homes down there in Park.
Right, these two that you can see where my arrow is on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, both of those people did provide public comment at one or multiple of the Planning Commission meetings. Generally, both didn't have any objections to the development.
Is that their existing property line?
That is their existing property line.
And this is going to be fenced in?
There is quite a bit of fence being proposed along that side as well. It's a relatively high fence as well. Our zoning code currently allows, since the property is zoned office, that it can actually have a higher fence than if it would butt it up to residential. So the existing fence that's there in these rear yards is actually 8 feet, which the zoning code allows because it's a residential property that backs up to an office building. Under the change in the zoning, it would not allow for as high of a fence, but they're proposing to put in a fence to replace the existing taller fence as well.
Is there any question about the aesthetics of the fence? Is it a chain link fence or is it a nicer ornamental fence? Is that even?
It's generally a wood fence, which would be common for other residences in the village.
Okay.
Well, and it looks like they have like the pretty grass part to look at. They're not looking at a building, at least.
They are proposing landscaping on the exterior as required by the village code, yes.
As a condition of the development, if you want a board-on-board or a wood fence, if you want that to be a condition, that certainly can be a condition.
Is the only place to read public comment in the Planning Commission agendas? Or will it be included on the planning and zoning agenda that's coming for this Thursday?
So all of the packets that were published for Plan Commission included any public comment that we received up until that point. Additionally, the recommendation that is included in the agenda packet for Thursday includes all written public comment we received. And the transcripts can be requested for the in-person comment as well.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any other questions? No? Okay. On to my next agenda item, which is Timber Trails 2025 Construction Observation Agreement with V3 Companies. The committee discussed an agreement to have V3 Companies continue construction observation for the Timber Trails subdivision, a role they began in February 2023, providing progress oversight and punch lists for Units 1 and 2. Under the 2025 agreement, V3 will continue performing work as needed, with costs covered by the developer per the annexation agreement, and the final cost will depend on the extent of services required. V3 and village staff are working with the developer to complete outstanding work and the proposal for 2025, including estimates for man-hours and costs. The committee recommended approval of this item. And then my next item is 5600 Wolf Road Heritage Crossing Stormwater Review Assistance Agreement with Baxter and Woodman Consulting Engineers, Amendment Number 2. The committee discussed an amendment to an existing agreement, Baxter and Woodman Consulting Engineers, B&W, for stormwater management plan reviews for the Heritage Crossing development. Baxter and Woodman is assisting in the review of the stormwater management plan for the development. To date, the board has approved $19,800 of work for the contract. There is a need for additional review, and the original agreement and the first amendment and the agreement have been fully expended. Staff is now seeking approval for Amendment Number 2, which allows B&W to continue reviewing stormwater updates as needed, with costs billed at hourly rates, depending on the quality of the developer's future submittals. The committee recommended approval of this item. Does anybody have any questions about that? No? Okay. That concludes my report for tonight, President Ralph. I know it was a beefy one.
Yeah, you made up for all your lost time.
Right.
So, thank you very much, Trustee Naraki. All right, moving on to Public Works and Water Committee report. Trustee Fink.
Thank you. The first item is the Gilbert Avenue Resurfacing Design Engineering Intergovernmental Agreement with Village of LaGrange. So this is about resurfacing Gilbert Avenue, which we share with the Village of LaGrange from Ogden to 47th Street. In 2022, we received a grant from the West Central Municipal Conference Surface Transportation Program to resurface Gilbert Avenue. And this is a far-reaching project not to have construction until 2027. So we're looking to split the costs evenly with LaGrange, and that's why we need this intergovernmental agreement. So with this grant, we're 80%, the grant is going to cover 80% of the construction and construction engineering, so it's about $1,130,759, but it does not cover design engineering. But luckily, they got another grant to cover half of the design, phase one engineering, which will be about $110,000. So the grant will cover $55,000, and Western Springs will be responsible for $27,500, and LaGrange for the other $27,500. So we're recommending moving forward with the intergovernmental agreement with LaGrange to share the cost of engineering, and recommending approving the professional service agreement with Baxter & Woodman for phase one engineering. The next item is surplus declaration of well number 3, the motor for well number 3. So in 2017, the pump and motor of well number 3 needed to be pulled and replaced with the spare that the village already owned. At that time, we couldn't figure out if it could be repaired or just have to be scrapped. They found out it could not be repaired. The problem is it has a mercury seal, and it will cost $25,662 to properly decommission following the EPA and state statutes. So we're recommending declaring the motor from well number 3 as surplus and authorizing Lane, a granite company, to properly dispose of it. The next item is surplus declaration of water meters from well number 3 and well number 4. So this past fall, well number 3 and well number 4 meters were replaced. The old meters, the electronics have been recycled on it, but recommending that is just considered scrap metal. The next item is purchase of water meters and accessories from water resources. So we're recommending the purchase of water meters from water resources not to exceed $18,501.25. So what this is for 15 1.5-inch water meters and 10 1-inch meters. So we pay for this cost, and if you need a new home or a new business, you're going to come and purchase that from the village, so we have the same water meters going throughout. So this is a cost that will be recouped throughout the year. The next two items are renewals. So both of them went to bid in the past. So the first one is sewers, televising, and cleaning services, National Power Riding contract renewal. So we're recommending the renewal for village sewer, televising, and cleaning with National Power Riding not to exceed $105,000. And the other one is another renewal, sidewalk shaving program, Murphy Construction, recommending approving the renewal of the village sidewalk shaving program at the same $19.55 per inch foot. And the last item is Bright Assets Essential. It's a 3-year software service agreement. So we currently use the software at a price of more than $18,800, but if we enter a 3-year agreement, we get a reduction in price of 22%. So we're recommending approval of a 3-year agreement with Siemens not to exceed $15,049.69 per year.
And I think that we will take action on that later today?
Yes.
Later today, okay.
And that's all I have.
All right, very good. And then the other items, as discussed, will come for action at a later time? Okay, all right, very good. Thank you very much. Moving on to the Properties and Recreation Committee report. Trustee Bacon.
Thank you. I have a bunch of renewals as well to propose. The first one is with Vega Building Maintenance. We are recommending that we approve a second renewal for the custodial services for the 1-year period with Vega Building Maintenance in an amount not to exceed $41,907. Also suggesting that we renew our HVAC maintenance contract with the YMI Group. And that recommendation is, where is my price for that one? Oh, $17,995, right? Huh? Yeah, okay. And then to renew our tree trimming services with Winkler Tree and Lawn Service. And that one is to renew a second renewal for the tree trimming contract with Winkler Tree and Service for an amount not to exceed $105,000. And then another renewal with Berry Landscaping for landscaping services. And that amount is not to exceed $91,779. And that's the first renewal with them. So the other ones we've been a couple of years in. This is our first renewal with them. And then the last one is a renewal with Tree Removal Services Desiderio Landscaping. And we are proposing that we renew that contract for an amount not to exceed $75,000. Any questions on any of the renewals? Then the rec department gave us an update. Everything's going great. Their basketball leagues have greatly improved, and they have had a lot of success with a lot of their events, so everything's going great. The backboard that were going in Grand Avenue got delayed, so some of the numbers have to move from 2024 to 2025. So it's not adding any more numbers, it's just moving it because it got pushed back. So some of that is going to be moved around a little bit, but hopefully that stays on track. And they got the new ground laid at Grand Avenue, unfortunately right before it got freezing, so the kids didn't really get to enjoy it, but it's in and it looks great. And that concludes my report.
Very good. Thank you very much. All right. And last but not least, our Public Health and Safety Committee report.
Thank you, President Rudolph. Our committee met earlier this evening, and I have 3 items to discuss. The first has to do with the $75,000 Safe Routes to School grant we received from the state last year to develop a village-wide school travel plan. The plan will cover schools in District 101, 106, LTHS, and St. John of the Cross. Improvements are expected to include sidewalk installation and reconfiguration, intersection safety improvements, bike safety considerations, and drop-off improvements. The plan for those things. Having a completed plan should also increase our chances of obtaining future state grants for any of those related projects. Village staff reviewed qualifications from 4 firms interested in helping us develop a plan, and recommended we hire Epstein, a global engineering and construction services company based in Chicago. And we expect that plan to be completed this fall. So our committee is recommending the full board approve an agreement between Western Springs and Epstein for the development of a Safe Routes to School travel plan at our next get-together. Any questions? Moving on. Next, you will recall that State Senator Susie Glowiak-Hilton helped us obtain a $350,000 grant from the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity that we will use to purchase a new ambulance to replace our 2008 model. After learning of the grant, a specifications committee consisting of municipal fleet services and fire and EMS staff was formed to research and evaluate various manufacturers and their products. That committee has recommended that we purchase the new ambulance from Foster Coach Sales, Inc. through the Suburban Purchasing Cooperative. The cooperative is a joint purchasing program used by 144 municipalities and townships in northeastern Illinois. So the new ambulance will be a 2026 Horton conversion ambulance mounted on a Ford F550 4x4 chassis equipped with lights, sirens, and other goodies. Now, the disappointing part is that it will take 3 years to build the ambulance due to ongoing supply chain issues.
3 years.
3 years.
And is the cost, does the $350 cover the cost of it, or is there?
Yes, but we'll pay for it. Yeah, I think we have to put the order in. Yeah, but yeah, 3 years down the pike, we should have our new ambulance.
2030.
Yeah, hope we're still. So our committee recommends the full board waive the competitive bidding process and approve an agreement with Foster Coach Services, Inc. to purchase the Foster Coach Horton conversion ambulance. And that would also be at a future meeting. And lastly, our committee reviewed license agreements between the Village of Western Springs and Lyons Township High School, District 204, and also between the village and the Timber Trails Homeowners Association. The agreements will allow us to install license plate reader equipment on their respective properties, along 47th Street for LT and down along Wolf Road for Timber Trails. As you will recall, the police department received a $56,000 grant from the Illinois Attorney General's office to purchase 5 license plate readers, and the readers will help capture license plate details and other identifying information about vehicles suspected of being used to commit crimes. So, our committee is recommending the full board approve the license agreements with Lyons Township and the Timber Trails Homeowners Association at an upcoming meeting. And any questions about that? We're getting 5 license plate readers, and and the other 3 will be placed in different spots around the village. So.
Village property.
Mhm.
On village property, right.
Any questions? That concludes my report.
And those they're kind of, I guess I could characterize it as part of, I guess I'm saying this to you, Sean, part of kind of then a network kind of with our surrounding communities
Right.
too, right?
We're coordinating the placement with Hinsdale and LaGrange to make sure we don't have overlapping coverage and cover any blind spots we may have now.
Okay.
That's for the 3. The other 2 are Timber Trails and LT.
Well, that's also part of that coordinated placement.
Will they be close to those locations?
The other ones are going to be, one's going to be at Ogden and Hampton, facing eastbound. Another one at Ogden and Harvey, facing eastbound. Gilbert and 51st Street. And then 55th Street and Grand Avenue, facing westbound. So when if somebody puts out the word that the vehicle was used in a bank robbery, for example, this would pick it up if they're coming our way, or if they're in our town, and alert our guys to go get the bad guys.
Chief Gilhooly, do you want to add anything more, just even background? I mean, to me too, this, the way I understand it too, it's, there's quite a bit of a safety element in this too, because then it's easier to be tracking like from town to town versus having any sort of high speed kind of chases. Am I characterizing that right?
Absolutely. If we have a vehicle that was involved in a certain crime, we know where to deploy our resources right away. But not only for criminal behavior, we've utilized it with missing individuals. We were able to plug in their license plate into that and locate them. And we did that a few months ago this year with a lady who was suffering from dementia, and we were able to locate her within an hour. So.
That's a wonderful point you made about high speed. I just read about Chicago paying exorbitant amount for a civil liability for a high-speed chase. I mean, I didn't even think about that you could just track this by a camera going per town instead of having police.
Yeah, it's safer.
Yeah. And then what you mentioned about an individual that was incapacitated without alarming that person, just being able to.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else? Okay.
That concludes my report.
All right, very good. A few more items here on our agenda. Okay, we're going to move on to new business, and our first item is with respect to the Village of Riverside, and I think Village Manager Bear is going to give a little bit of background on that, and then I'll read the proclamation.
Sure, I'd be glad to. The Village of Riverside is celebrating their sesquicentennial, 150 years since they were incorporated as a community, and they are planning a series of events throughout the year. It has a neighboring community and one that partners with the Village of Riverside on a number of initiatives, including our West Central Cable Agency, and also they are part of the West Central Municipal Conference. They have reached out to neighboring communities to see if we'd like to participate in their celebration. And the first thing that we were invited to do was a proclamation, which they would put put into their time capsule. So what you have before you on the agenda this evening is a proclamation in support and celebration of the sesquicentennial celebration in Riverside. There are a couple of notable facts on there, as well as the mention of our partnerships with our neighboring communities. So big congratulations to the Village of Riverside, and the proclamation is there for your consideration.
And should I go ahead and read that, or?
You don't need to read it aloud.
Okay.
We'll just approve it, and
Okay.
then we will put it together in a booklet form to send on to the Village of Riverside.
Okay. all right.
Thank you.
Very good. Thanks
Then
very much.
I would have a motion to accept the proclamation.
I'll second that motion.
And may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, President Rudolph. Excuse me. Trustee Avakian.
Aye.
Trustee Chen.
Aye.
Trustee Fink.
Aye.
Trustee Lewis.
Aye.
Trustee Naraki.
Aye.
Trustee Terrell.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Very good. Thank you very much. And I think then also, Trustee Terrell.
Yes, I'd also have a motion regarding the DuPage Mayors and Managers Conference Legislative Action Program for 2025 and resolution that I spoke about earlier. I would have a motion to approve that resolution.
I'll second that motion.
Very good. May we have a roll call vote?
Yes. Trustee Avakian.
Aye.
Trustee Chen.
Aye.
Trustee Fink.
Aye.
Trustee Lewis.
Aye.
Trustee Naraki.
Aye.
Trustee Terrell.
Aye.
This motion also carries.
Very good.
I'd also have a motion to approve the December 2nd, 2024 and December 16th, 2024 Board of Trustees meeting minutes as read.
I'll second that motion.
All right. And may we have a roll call vote?
Yes. Trustee Avakian.
Aye.
Trustee Chen.
Aye.
Trustee Fink.
Aye.
Trustee Lewis.
Aye.
Trustee Naraki.
Aye.
Trustee Terrell.
Aye.
We're 3-0. 3 for 3.
Thank you very much. And thanks, Trustee Terrell. Now we'll move on to item 13 on our agenda, old business, and I'm going to go to Trustee Fink for this resolution.
All right, resolution number 24-2864, a resolution authorizing the approval and execution of a cloud services agreement between the Village of Western Springs and Brightly Software, Inc. for a government cloud-based license subscription and use of Asset Essential Enterprise to allow the village to operate its work order management, asset management, fleet, and safety programs. Contract terms, 36 months. So I make a motion to approve this resolution.
I'll second.
Very good. And a roll call vote for this resolution, please.
Yes, President Rudolph. Trustee Chen.
Aye.
Trustee Lewis.
Aye.
Trustee Naraki.
Aye.
Trustee Terrell.
Aye.
Trustee Avakian.
Aye.
Trustee Fink.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Very good. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to our reports. Trustee Chin, is there a monthly financial report?
No, not tonight.
All right, very good. I have a brief report mentioned tonight. I'm going to turn to a topic we haven't discussed tonight, just briefly, the referendum question that we know is forthcoming on the April 1st ballot, asking residents to consider the issuance of $45 million in bonds to fund our critical infrastructure improvements over the next 10 years. I want to encourage everyone to continue to make sure you're aware of what we have on the website. Visit the Referendum 2025 resource page. Staff does keep updating it. And to learn more about the referendum and how our community has funded the improvements in our infrastructure in the past, and as we all know, primarily residential in nature. So there's a lot of good stuff there. And one of the things too to really call out to friends and neighbors, the property tax calculator on the website now has really been improved, and it's pretty slick, and it's a really great way for our residents to estimate the potential impact of the bonds. To use the calculator, it helps if you do know the property value from your most recent tax bill. So just an FYI on that. And again, it is a really good way for people to get a really good sense of how it will personally impact them. Staff does continue to add to the information on the referendum page, and we will hold additional open house meetings, as well as publish a special issue of the Tower Topics newsletter. We've done this kind of in the past as a way to try to keep residents informed, and as residents prepare to vote on the critical referendum question. So that concludes my report for tonight, and I will move on then to Village Manager Bear.
Thank you. I would just add to your comments that the first of the open house meetings is to be held on Thursday, January 23rd at 5:30 p.m. This first open house of the year will be online, hopefully to accommodate those who don't want to go out in the cold. It'll be a great way to hear from our staff in terms of the facts surrounding the referendum, and we'll be able to answer any questions that residents might have. So again, that one's Thursday, January 23rd, 5:30. There will be more information on how to access that on our referendum website in the coming week or two, or week or so, because it's coming up quick. And then the second and third are scheduled for in person, I believe, on Tuesday, February 11th. That one will be held at the Thomas Ford Library. We hope to meet people kind of out in the community, as well as Thursday, March 13th. We're still working on time and location for that item. So we look forward to meeting people and answering questions. The last two things I just wanted to mention is we are in the last week of Christmas tree collection. I know most people got their trees out already. I see them all over, and appreciate everybody removing all of the decorations before they put them out to the curb. LRS will be collecting through January 17th. Trees collected after that date will require a sticker, and LRS will keep working on that. And then we are continuing our recycling of holiday lights. So if you have unwanted lights or lights that don't work, you can recycle those either here at Village Hall in our lobby, or at Village True Value Hardware or the Thomas Ford Memorial Library through January 31st. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. And Village Attorney Jerusik.
No report tonight.
All right, very good. With that, we are at the conclusion.
Can I add one thing real quick?
Yes.
I just want to say thanks to Public Works for all their hard work with the holiday lights. I think we've acknowledged that, but I've been meaning to send an email, and my two kids are here and they loved it. They loved the selfie picture with the Christmas card and the hay. It was wonderful, and we got a really nice picture of our family and stuff. So thank you so much to Public Works for putting that out in the neighborhood for everyone.
Well, thank you very much. I'll let the Public Works team know. I know they put a lot of work into the holiday lights, and they took a lot of pride in that this year.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you for mentioning that.
We used the frame last year.
It's
so fun.
It's great. Yeah, it's really clever.
Yes. Even had the selfie distance like perfect for it too, right? A little stand there, like, oh, bro, let's get it.
Awesome. That's great. Thanks so very much. Okay, now.
I would have a motion to adjourn tonight's Board of Trustees regular meeting.
I will second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for all the hard work. Thanks to the staff, everybody.
What's that?